Bluegrass Beatdown on Tuesday night, and oh my, Louisville, you are so back.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. I'm your host today, Isaac Shaver, joining me as the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 podcast sports network. Thanks so much for making us your first listener watch to get your Wednesday going the right way. I want to give a special shout out to all our everydayers out there. What's up? As well as all the members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord. You want to join our great college basketball community on Discord? That link's in the show notes. Come hang out with us. Coming up on the show today, we got to start in the Bluegrass State where Louisville handled Kentucky. Then Illinois welcomed in Texas Tech, but not so kindly because they beat the Red Raiders despite a massive game from JT Toppin. And then Creighton went up to Gonzaga, and they got a leash put on them in the kennel. Maybe we'll say it that way. Plus, Michigan and Florida get more than they bargained for against a couple of ACC schools. All coming up on the show today. We start in Louisville, Kentucky, where I'm joined by the great DESHAUN TATE. Let's get it. Man, it's great to be joined for the first time this college basketball season, by the way, with our guy DESHAUN TATE at Tate's Take Hoops on the Twitter machine. This man is ate up with college basketball just like Andy and I are, and excited to have him more on this season and part of what we're doing on Locked On College Basketball. DESHAUN, it's great to be together. We're talking the Bluegrass battle where Louisville, the homestanding Cards, beat Kentucky 96-88. in a score that was very reminiscent of last year's game that Kentucky won 93-85. You and I were just talking, DESHAUN, and I think both basically thought this was a coin flip game. Louisville led this game by as much as 20 points. They led for 37 minutes and 42 seconds out of the 40. They led. It's crazy, DESHAUN. Is there any world in which you saw that happening?
No, I don't think so, especially not for the stretch or the duration of time in which Louisville led and was, looked like gonna win this game convincingly. I thought that it was just gonna be neck and neck the whole way through. I think everybody pretty much anticipated the high energy and the physicality, the fast pace that this rivalry, one of the best in college basketball, by the way, always is, very underrated. But it was a game of runs, and listen, first sellout in 6 years, I think, over 22,000 fans, and the first time that both of these teams have met, ranked in the top 15 since like 2016. That's going all the way back to those De'Aaron Foxes and Malik Monks and Donovan Mitchell games and things like that. So no, man, it's everything as anticipated, although I did think Kentucky would put up a little bit more of a fight.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you look at the stats from this game, Otega Oweh ended up fouling out of this game, as did Colin Chandler. Oweh didn't have too much of a night, 4 of 13, 20 points, 5 boards. It was Denzel Aberdeen that was the dude for Kentucky. I tell you what, Florida probably could have used Denzel Aberdeen last night as they struggled with the Seminoles. But, man, DESHAUN, the thing was, it was the Louisville guards that dominated this thing. It was freshman MIKEL Brown Jr. with 29. It was RYAN CONWELL coming over from Xavier. Speaking of team, Xavier could really use RYAN CONWELL as well. Had 24 himself. Those two combined, DESHAUN, for 53 of Louisville's 96 points. Isaac McNeely chipped in 9. He didn't have to do a ton, and that's the thing. As long as 1 or 2 of these Louisville guards are on, it don't matter what anybody else is doing,
I feel like it appears that, we have these conversations about all these phenomenal freshmen, and I keep on feeling like there's somebody left out. And MIKEL Brown, you're not going to be able to mention as great of a freshman class as this is before you can get to his name. 20 of those 29, by the way, all in the first half. He had 20 at the half and obviously went down a little bit early with some cramps, went to the back, probably drank a little pickle juice and got back out there. But I actually thought that I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't see the sophomore transfer from Arizona State, Jaden Quaintance, for Kentucky on tonight. I think that could have potentially made things a little bit different. Not everybody's mama's not giving birth to guys that are just 6'10", almost 250 anymore nowadays. But the intensity leveled up for Kentucky, made it a lot more of an interesting game. Tons of free throws down the stretch for Louisville that they missed. I think about 7 or 8, where they could have probably won this game by about 15 points or something like that. Far too many turnovers for them. And hey, listen, Louisville took advantage and are now adding a number to the left side of the result column. So kudos to them.
And Deshaun, I think what you bring up there about JQ is a big part of this. If I'm a Kentucky fan, I'm bemoaning that he is not yet on the floor, that he's injured, and like, when is he going to get back? And I guess part of it, you're also saying, like, it's tough because it's like we're living for SEC play. We want to make sure he's back by then. But as you said, along with a couple other rivalries, this is one of the 2 or 3 greatest rivalries, not just in college basketball, but in all of college sports. And so you're like, dang it, I just want to beat Louisville if you're Kentucky, especially because it's like you've held Louisville under your thumb easily for the last several years. And now it's like, oh man, Louisville might be back. And I think, Deshaun, that's part of the conversation here. Does Pat Kelsey have the cards fully all the way back? Where are you at on Louisville, where they are at, not just in this game, but overall?
I think certainly getting back to where they were, being one of the, top ranked teams in the country. Certainly, feels good to say top 10, but for sure, one of the better top 20 teams. I feel like, I think they kind of, solidify themselves in that spot, especially with the year that they had on last year. I mean, just think about it. I don't know what 365 times 2 is, but about that many days ago, 700 and something. I mean, they were coached by somebody totally different. They were still feeling what felt like the wrath of all the scandal and everything that had transpired with Rick Pitino and all that. And now they just look like something completely different, like they have a totally different identity. They're picking up guys out of the G League, London Johnson, for crying out loud. So they're finding a way to get the cards back rolling again and getting people to believe in them. And, I think we could say this about a lot of teams, but the facts is that college basketball is just better when you can have a Louisville squad that is going to come out there and play some tough-nosed defense, put some top-ranked recruits out there to go with it, like a Mikel Brown running the show at the point guard position. And I think you've got yourself really something special there.
I think you're absolutely right, Deshaun. And you talked about the Pitino stuff. There was all the weirdness with the end of the Chris Mack era as well.
Mm-hmm.
And gosh, so it's just, thank you, Pat Kelsey, for making Louisville relevant again. And I think even Kentucky fans would as much as they want to beat Kentucky, or as much as they want to beat Louisville, I think they too can say that, as you want your rival to be good. The other thing, Deshaun, you mentioned the free throws. Obviously, there's a disparity there. But man, when I look at the turnovers in this game, Louisville commits just 6 turnovers.
Yeah.
To 14 for Kentucky. They turn it into Louisville scoring 19 points off of those turnovers, while Kentucky got just 10. So Louisville is +9 in points off turnovers in a game, Deshaun, that they win by 8. How about them apples?
I don't know about your favorite, but speaking of fruit, I don't know if you like blueberry. I don't know if you like cherry. I don't know if you like apple. There was more than enough turnover flavors for everybody to go around in this particular game. They just couldn't find a way to hold on to the basketball. I mean, they were just, I know we're in the season of giving and all that good stuff, get into Thanksgiving and everybody being grateful and thankful for each other and all that stuff. Well, Louisville was grateful on tonight, especially with the way that the game went down the stretch on the tail end. But listen, I mean, when you have a situation where I think where the tides kind of turned a little bit, kind of let me know the direction of which this game was going. We're looking at a 13-0 run for Louisville in the first half. And I think at that point, Conwell had scored like 11 of the team's first 30 points. Kentucky had 6 turnovers by that point, went 0 for 5 from the field. And I was like, oh, yeah, get ready for a long night. Now, I do feel like it was going to ultimately be a game of runs. Inevitably, you have to assume the way that Pat Kelsey had prepared his guys, there's going to be a time that Kentucky is going to make a run. It's all going to come down to how Louisville responds to that. They responded fairly well, and I think that showed some things. I think both teams learned some things on tonight, and how to be able to respond when another team is making a run. And Kentucky's got their hands full. They got some big time games coming up really soon too. I know they got the Champions Classic coming up against Michigan State at Madison Square Garden, so they're going to have to get that turnover situation together for sure.
Yeah, and the problem is, you look at it, it's like, well, maybe it was our bigs and they were struggling. The issue here, we talked about Otega Owe not having a great night. Dude, 2 assists, 5 turnovers. Jalen Lowe was 5 assists to 3 turnovers. So your 2 main ball handlers combined are 7 assists to 8 turnovers. Anytime you're looking at a negative assist to turnover ratio, you are not happy. I know Coach Pope's going to want to see more of that. Kentucky's defense got to get better as well. And when you look at Louisville, they're not even back to full strength yet. Cason Pryor is still working his way back from last year's injury. I know Ali Khalifa's still trying to fully get back in the mix. So Louisville, they do this and they're still trying to ascend all the way back. So Deshaun, man, it's exciting to see. Last word on this thing. Let's go big picture here with the Cards. Can they beat Duke to win the ACC?
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the first things they have going for themselves is to be really transparent. The point guard position. I don't think that Duke's really in a comfortable place with theirs. I know, Caden Boozer maybe trying to add him to the mix now as a starter and what have you. I think they're going to have to figure that out. But that's the quarterback of a football team, pretty much, of a basketball team, if you think about it that way. So I think they definitely can. And I don't think Pat Kelsey is really, trying to think of the word I want to use here. I don't think it's a liability, or I don't think he's vulnerable to being outcoached by someone like a John Shire. And that's just talking about Duke, for example. So again, I mean, I think it's going to be a tight race to the finish. Either one of those teams could win the ACC, but I think they showed some proof of who they can be this year based off of last year, only building and getting better. And honestly, I don't think this year's Duke team is as good as last year's either. So that goes in a little bit of favor of the Cards.
I think so. I'm excited to see how that plays out. Look, here's the bottom line. Both of these teams in the Bluegrass State are phenomenal, and there's going to be some great basketball for both Big Blue Nation and Card Nation. I can't wait to see it. My man Deshaun, great stuff. Great to be together. Looking forward to talking hoops with you all season long. Coming up next, Illinois welcomes Texas Tech to Champaign, and they send them home packing. Ooh, boy, what a tough performance. ANDREJ STOJAKOVIC is back from injury, and he is ready to cook. JT Toppin lights it up in a loss. We'll have the great host of Locked On Illini, Sunny Verma, join me in just a second. Right after I tell you about Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. You need parts for a project? No worries, because Supply House has next day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs when every single detail matters. So join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. Again, that's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Oh, baby, what a battle in Champaign, Illinois. The shorthanded Illini take a win from Texas Tech, 81-77 on Tuesday night. Sunny Verma, the great host of Locked On Illini, joins me now to break it all down. Sunny, I don't think there's anywhere to start, but no Tommy? No problem, my guy.
Yeah, you're not kidding. This was a game that was a hard-fought battle. It looked like in the first half that Illinois might be coasting, which was a surprise to me. You watch that first half and you're like, hey, this could be a Final Four team the way that they're playing. But the question that we've all had, at least this Illini fan base, is what's going to happen when another team punches them in the face? And that exactly what happened in the second half today. And that punch's name was JT Toppin, who ended up with 39 points and 11 rebounds today. But, Texas Tech, despite Illinois being up 13 at halftime, Texas Tech really entered the second half on fire. I think they made their first 9 baskets or something like that, took the lead, And then what would it come down to? Then, can this team, which is a pretty brand new team, half the roster is brand new, can they persevere? Can they come through? And two guys, Kylan Boswell, ANDREJ STOJAKOVIC, they kind of took the reins and, hey, young kids, you did your part. Now let the vets take care of their part. They did. And Illinois comes away with a super impressive 81-77 victory. Like I said, our best player didn't play. Tomislav Ivisic, potential all Big Ten center. He is going to be out for maybe a couple weeks, but it showed you that this team is deep, Isaac. I mean, really deep.
Sonny, it's so true. And here I sit with my hand raised in the air. And Sonny, because we've talked about it, how much I like this Illinois team.
Yeah.
Ellipsis at full strength. Like as you say, there's so much depth. Like the Eastern Bloc quintet alone is enough, but that's even before you start thinking about Hummerhouse and it just all the pieces that come with this, with Kylan Boswell and Wagler, all of that. And so hand up, I had Texas Tech winning this game on the road because I thought like Chris Anderson, Lawan Watts, who's your Darion Williams replacement, JT Toppin, I thought they're all going to do it. Well, Watts and Toppin did their part, combining for, 36 points between the two of them. Mm-hmm. But Chris Anderson just didn't have the game he had recently. 4 of 12 from the field, 8 points, did get 11 assists and just 3 turnovers, which is insanity, Sonny. But I tell you, man, I really feel like we learned something about this Illinois team, the depth of it, as you said, and how resilient they are. And man, like, how good does it feel, Sonny, not knowing preseason, like how bad is this Stojakovic knee situation going to be? Because, dude, when it comes to knees, I get nervous. For my man to come off the bench, drop and a very efficient 23. Like when you only need 16 shots to get to 23, like, man, that's good. How long is it, do you think, before Andre is back in the starting lineup?
I think he could very well be in the starting lineup next game. The guy who's taking his spot, Jake Davis, who I think is a very solid role player for what he is. But in an ideal situation, he's like your 8th guy. Jake, had 0 points. He basically had zeros all across the board, except for that one rebound. But, Andres is a guy who I looked at the last game, Florida Gulf Coast. They played on last Friday. And his box score didn't look all that impressive. And a lot of people were saying he looked very rusty in that first half. And yeah, I agree. But what I really did like, and I talked about it in the live postgame immediately after, was that usually when someone's coming off a very serious injury like that, you see if they're playing timidly. You see if they're being hesitant with their body. He wasn't. He was being very aggressive. And I said in that postgame that, to me, that's a good sign. That he's not worried about re-aggravating anything, that he feels like he's ready to play basketball again. And I thought that maybe that would be a prelude to the rest of the season. I didn't know it would be a prelude to this, what we saw today, where he was the best player on the court, both offensively and defensively. You talk about Chris Anderson's numbers. A lot of that was because ANDREJ STOJAKOVIC locked him down in that first half. And that's something that not many people talk about. When you get Stojakovic, people are talking about, hey, this kid scored 18 points per game almost in the ACC last year. This could be your new high scorer on this year's team. He might be, but when it comes to scoring, this team has a lot of options. It could be a new guy every single night. What this team needs is a couple of guys to just lock down the opposing offense's best players. And this team has 2 of them, in Kylan Boswell and Stojakovic.
And not to you talked about Stojakovic's defense. Sonny, what is going through your head when Lawan Watts knocks down those 2 free throws to get it within 3 with, 12 seconds left at that point?
Like that, yeah.
And Chris Anderson goes up for what to me looked like it was going to be an uncontested look at a game-tying 3. And here comes Peja's son out of nowhere to block that shot and basically help secure the victory. I mean, what a play, what an athletic play from a dude who you just talked about is your knee going to be okay? Do you trust it? Take me through all the emotion of that moment.
You're pointing out why Andrej is so vital to this team. This team coming into this game with very minimal help from ANDREJ STOJAKOVIC, I think was ranked number 3 offensively in KenPom. It's just a very offensively potent team. But what it doesn't have is a guy who's built like an NBA forward already, 6'7", 6'8". He's got a decent frame to him, and he can just take the ball to the rim at will, put his head down, get to the free throw line. But also on the defensive side, as you just talked about, he's got that Stojakovic name, right? His dad was one of the best players in the NBA, especially in particular when you and I were growing up. Maybe the youngsters may not quite remember. But, with that, comes IQ, I feel like, comes feel for the game. And that was one of those moments where that was displayed that, yeah, he got beat, but he had enough in him to come back around and be able to block that shot, which quite honestly saved the game for the Illini.
I mean, yes, easily that we didn't get enough of the flight of the ball to know if it was going in, but boy, it was a good look. I'll tell you that right now. Sonny, I wanted to ask you to put on both Illinois and a Texas Tech hat right now, because to me, this is one of those games where I walk away from it actually feeling better about both teams. It's not like, boy, Illinois won the game and Texas Tech just didn't have it. Like, for Texas Tech to do this on the road and for Illinois to hold up in a game that I'd love to hear your thought on this. I think Illinois probably loses this game last year when they're younger, less experienced, less time, right? Like, I actually walk away from this game feeling really good about the Illini and feeling really good about Texas Tech.
You're exactly right. I mean, JT Toppin, like I've said it before, I think he's the best player in college basketball. And in March, you need two things. You need a very good head coach, and I've got all the respect in the world for Texas Tech's head coach. I loved what he did last year, getting that team to the Elite Eight. But you also need playmakers, and Texas Tech happens to have two of the best in the country. It's a game today where, yeah, again, they came out on the short end. If you're an Illini fan, you did this without two guys in your rotation, and your starting center. If you're a Texas Tech fan, you did this with, I don't know how you discuss the reffing in this situation. I think that flagrant one at the end was kind of egregious, but at the same time, Illinois was only called for 8 fouls today. So it's a game that they kept close. I'm talking about getting punched in the face. Texas Tech got punched in the face in that first half. And yet, the Orange Crush, they were being really rowdy in the stands today. And yet Texas Tech had it in them to come back in that second half, make some adjustments, take the lead again. I think that's a really good team. It's just they ran into a team that right now I think is playing as good as anybody in the country.
One thing I want to point out, Sonny, and then I want to ask you about the injury status of those guys. Both teams had 13 turnovers, and I don't know if you had seen this or caught this, but Illinois turned those 13 turnovers into 29 points, while Texas Tech only got 16 points off of the turnover. So same turnovers for both teams, but Illinois was plus 13 in points off. I think that's a big deal for Brad Underwood and his staff. They're going to love it. Any update, anything you hearing right now, Sonny, either about Petrovic's availability or Tomislav as well? Are we just kind of just wait and see on both of those? Anything from Coach Underwood?
So with Mihailo Petrovic, he was practicing this morning, and he was even participating in shoot-around. He was questionable on the availability report, so it was kind of 50-50 on whether he would play or not. I did get a little excited because he was wearing the jersey during shoot-arounds today, and he was a full participant in the shoot-around. But I just think that maybe this was too high-profile of a game.
I agree.
To throw a guy in there for his first college basketball game ever. We play Colgate later on this week, and I can imagine that if Petrovic is ready to go, or at least if they're willing to see if his hamstring's ready to go, that's probably a good opportunity for him to get out there for 10, 15 minutes. Because next week, we're going to be playing Alabama at the United Center. We're going to need a healthy Petrovic for that game. As for Tommy, Brad he's not giving much details, but he never really does. I've heard anything between 2 weeks to a month gone. They've been pretty clear that they don't think it's any sort of season ender. So, I mean, that's a relief, obviously. But, if Zvonimir continues to play the way he played in that first half today, then, that's Illinois has one of the best backup centers in the country. And hopefully he can make up for while his brother is gone.
Yeah, let me just make sure everyone knows what Big Z did. 11 points on 4 of 6 shooting, 2 of 4 from 3, 7 boards, 3 blocks in 24 minutes. Really good stuff. As Sonny already alluded to, Illinois has Alabama next week, then a couple bye games in between, and then UConn, Tennessee, Ohio State, boom, 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 right after that. So they need Tomislav Ivisic back in Champaign sooner rather than later. So Sonny, really excited to see what's ahead with this schedule. We're going to know a lot about these Illini by the time we're ringing in 2026 and Big Ten play. My guy, thank you so much for your time. Big congrats on the win. And, again, mea culpa. Isaac Shade got this one big wrong. Congrats to the Illini. Keep it rocking, my guy. Thank you. Coming up next, we got to go up to Spokane, Washington, where Creighton took a trip all the way up to the kennel for our third ranked-on-ranked matchup of Tuesday. Plus, a couple ACC schools came just close on the road, but couldn't get it done. Wake can't quite get it done against Michigan. Neither can FSU at reigning national champs Florida. We'll unpack all of that coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, y'all, the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game, or maybe you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything, from who will score the next to fourth quarter comebacks and everything else. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. All of this keeps every game exciting because there's always something on the line for you when you get on board with FanDuel. Next Tuesday, Champions Classic. We got Duke, Kansas. We got Kentucky, Michigan State. It's going to be electric. And you know FanDuel is going to have all the great lines for that. Go check it out. And right now, new FanDuel customers get $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Hey, thanks for making Locked On College Basketball your first listener watch of the day. And thank you for making the Locked On Network the #1 sports podcast network out there. Want to burn through a couple other games. We were talking about it earlier in the week. Andy is actually up in Spokane right now covering Gonzaga Creighton last night, where, oh my word, the Bulldogs absolutely trucked Creighton 90-63. The Zags lead for all but 30 seconds of this game. Graham Ike is just a dude. 20 points, 8 of 10 from the field, 4 of 4 from 3, 10 boards to go with it. So a nice little double-double there. A couple stats to me tell the story of this game. Gonzaga, 8 turnovers, 18 of them for Creighton. But here's the real kicker. Gonzaga leads points off turnovers 27-5. Gross for Creighton. They got to clean that up. Kennel is a wildly difficult place to play, but look, Coach McDermott is not going to be happy about that. The other big stat that tells me the story of this game, 48-20 points in the paint in favor of Gonzaga. So really interesting to see what that means for both teams. I think for Creighton, you go up there to Gonzaga and you recognize, look, this is going to be a very, very difficult building to go win in ever. But especially, like, I already felt good about Gonzaga. And now that Tyon Grant Foster's back, I think this is probably right now a pretty undervalued team that I think we're just going to see slowly climb up the ranks. I mean, to dispatch another ranked team like that is wild to do. Big congrats to Gonzaga. Massive win for Mark Few. We'll see what happens going forward. A couple other games I want to dive into a little bit here is two AC. We talked about Louisville's big win. 2 other ACC schools nearly got big wins, but couldn't quite get out over the hump. Let's start in Detroit, where Michigan needed overtime to beat Wake Forest 85-84. Biggest takeaway from this game, do me a favor and go Google the following 4 words. Would you? Miles, Colvin, Elliott, Cadeau. And if you are a relative or family member of Elliott Cadeau, maybe don't follow the advice I just gave you, because Miles Colvin caught a body. I mean, my goodness. And thank me later for going to Google that. But the crazy thing is, both of these guys factored into the end of this game. Miles Colvin hits a 3 with just under a minute left in regulation to give Wake Forest a 2-point lead. And I was like, man, Wake might legit do this. Obviously not a true road game, but they're up in Detroit playing Michigan, whatever, right? But then Elliot Cadeau follows up with a baseline layup to tie the game. And I was nervous that thing was going to spin out. It had some, what do you call it? The earth. What does the earth do? It spins on its axis. We had some of that action, but thankfully for Cadeau and the Wolverines, it spun in. Really good thing there. So we head to OT where it wasn't the prettiest offensive performance these two eyes have ever seen. Maybe we'll put it that way. 9 combined points in those 4 minutes. Not 9 for Michigan, not 9 for Wake Forest, 9 total points in overtime. The team started hot, hitting 3 of their first 5 shots. That was like in the first 90 seconds. And then the rest of the way, they missed 9 of their 10 final field goals. It was ugly. Wake has a shot right at the end, but a nice contest. I forget who it was from. I want to say it was a Daimara who contests, forces a just really lofted layup kind of situation, kind of a floater that didn't really have much of a chance of going in. Michigan escapes 85-84. And it's tough, man, for Wake, because you're like, man, we were hoping to make a name for ourselves. We had a shot, had an opportunity, and just couldn't get out over the hump. Nice, for Dusty Man Company is like, yeah, we didn't lose, we kind of escaped there. I've been lower on Michigan than a lot of people, but still, I'm not going to dump on them because they had a big game. It's like, you won the basketball game. At the end of the day, that's what matters. You made the plays you needed to win. The other one we want to point out is Florida State heading to Gainesville to take on the reigning national champion Gators. And if you had some concerns about Florida, which I know some people do, they weren't really allayed in this game, although maybe it's a good sign for Florida State of like, maybe the Noles in year 1 of a new regime are going to be better than we thought they were. Florida wins 78-76 at home. Florida State essentially led the first half of the second half, but within close quarters. And then Florida takes control, extends the lead out to that like 7-9 range for a lot of the rest of the half. But then Robert McCray, man, he just starts going wild for FSU, starts bringing the Noles back. They get it to within 1 multiple times in the final 2 minutes of the game. In fact, McCray himself has 2 free throws to tie it with 17 seconds left. Makes the first, misses the second. I hate that for him. You always, like, as a basketball player, man, you hate those moments. You've got a chance to step up and tie it, and you just can't do it at the charity stripe. Tough stuff there. McCray winds up with 29 points to lead all scorers. Great performance there. Quite frankly, if you're Florida, you look at this and you say, if we had hit more than 6 of the 31 threes we took, we might have had a easier go of it on Tuesday night. And that includes the Boogie Flan, Xavier Lee backcourt that combined to go 3 of 17 from beyond the arc. Lee had a tough night himself, 1 of 10 from beyond the arc. But I tell you, where Florida's hanging their hat, man, is in the front court. Listen to some of these numbers. Tommy Houck, 20 points, 13 boards. Ruben Chinyalu, 10 points, 16 boards. You're hearing that and you're like, Florida must have dominated the glass, right? And you'd be absolutely correct. The Gators out-rebound the Noles 58-36. That is absurd, my friends. And Xavier Lee, while he didn't have an efficient day, had essentially the triple-double-y kind of numbers that he did a lot at Princeton. 9 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds. And that's what they need from him. That's what Coach Golden needs from him, just with more efficiency. Again, somebody asked me, I was on a show earlier this week, and they're like, Isaac, is Florida's backcourt kind of the bugaboo that stops them from getting to the second weekend of the tournament? And my response was basically, if it was today, sure. But they've got 4 months to figure this thing out before we get to that point. And so I'm ultimately not worried long-term about Florida. It's just they got to start figuring those things out. I don't think, I will say this, though. This is not last year's team. Yes, the front court's intact. But Walter Clayton ain't walking through that door. Denzel Aberdeen had a night for Kentucky because Otega Owe didn't do it. We talked about that earlier, right? And so just some of those guys, Elijah Martin, gone. All that experience that he has, right? And so Florida's going to have to get that figured out with the backcourt. I think that they ultimately will. They just need some time like so many other teams do. By the way, one other game, we won't dive into it, but Ole Miss beats Memphis 83-77. We talked also yesterday about how cool it was that Duke was playing up at Army. Not a game as you would expect, 114-59. Duke leads the second half 65-29, but still, what a cool thing. Good on you, Coach Shire and the Blue Devils, for going up to play that game. All right, guys, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much for being here with me. Andy will be with you tomorrow. Andy and I will be back together on Friday. Cannot wait for those shows. Thank you for being here. If you haven't subscribed to Locked On College Basketball on video and audio, do it right now so you don't miss a second of our show. If you've not joined the Locked On College Basketball Discord, man, that's a great family of college basketball fans where we would love to see you come hang out with us. For now, though, as always, I want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Go Wild Popes. Sorry about that L you took. And cheers to the Mick Bruins. Until tomorrow. Peace.